Lee Kuan Yew shares his final words of caution in his last book.
It is nevertheless possible that eventually younger Singaporeans may, despite the most earnest efforts of the PAP, want not just more political competition, but a full two-party system. They have the right to choose. After all, it is for each generation of Singaporeans to decide for themselves what kind of country they want to build and how they want to organize society. But I hope the young will not make the decision lightly and will consider carefully all that they stand to lose. It is they who will have to live with the consequences, not I or those from my generation. We will not be around by the time the consequences kick in. The biggest problem with the two-party system is that once it is in place, the best people will choose not to be in politics. Getting elected will be a dicey affair. Fighting campaigns will also tend to become unnecessarily uncivil, even vicious. If you are talented and doing well in your career, why would you place so much at risk, not only your own interests but your family's too, by standing for election? You are more likely to prefer to stay out of the kitchen and in your comfortable life. Already, it is a Herculean task at each general election for us to convince the best and most committed to stand. Because the country is doing well, it will become very difficult to find people prepared to give up perfectly good careers outside politics. How much harder it would become if we turned into a two-party system. It would not just mean that our A team would be divided into two, or that we would have an A team in power half the time and a B team in power the other half. No, it is much worse than either of those two scenarios. It is simply that the A team and possibly also the B team would be turned off from politics and would concentrate on other pursuits. You would have a C, D, or E team in place. If you look at other countries that already operate a two-party system, you will come to the same conclusion. In Britain, if you look at the first-class honours list of Oxford or Cambridge and trace their careers, you will find that these people end up not in politics, but in banking, finance, and the professions. The front benches in Parliament are often not from the top tier. They are not drawn from the best lawyers or surgeons. The same forces are at play in America. The chief executive of a Fortune 500 company has a much better life, and the post would naturally attract more able candidates than those vying to become the President of the United States. But the difference between Singapore and those countries, that is, America and Britain, is that they will continue to do well despite an average government, but we will not. This is a small country with no natural resource, and in the middle of a region that has been volatile historically, special leadership is required here. Even as things stand, we have regretfully shifted the system away from attracting the best talent through reductions to ministerial pay. If I were a cabinet minister at the time the change came up for discussion, I would have stood firm. But the younger generation of ministers decided to go with the trend. It is true that no country in the world pays ministers as we do, but it is also true that no other island has developed like Singapore, sparkling, clean, safe, with no corruption and low crime rates. You can walk the streets or jog at night. Women will not be mugged. Police do not take bribes, and if they are offered bribes, there are consequences for the ones offering. None of this came about by coincidence. It took the construction of an ecosystem that requires highly paid ministers. With every pay reduction, the sacrifice that a minister makes, giving up his profession or his banking job, becomes greater. Some will eventually tell themselves, I don't mind doing this for half a term, 2.5 years, as a form of national service. But beyond that, it has to be thanks but no thanks. The final outcome would be a revolving door government, which will inevitably lack a deep understanding of the issues or the incentive to think about problems in a long-term manner. Will Singapore be around in 100 years? I'm not so sure. America, China, Britain, Australia these countries will be around in 100 years. But Singapore was never a nation until recently. An earlier generation of Singaporeans had to build this place from scratch, and what a fine job we have done. When I led the country, I did what I could to consolidate our gains. So too did Goh Chok Tong. And now, under Lee Hsien Loong and his team, the country will do well for at least the next 10 to 15 years. But after that, the trajectory that we take will depend on the choices made by a younger generation of Singaporeans. Whatever those choices are, I'm absolutely sure that if Singapore gets a dumb government, we are done for. This country will sink into nothingness.